There's this natural tendency for us guitarists to play pentatonic bass licks and riffs every time we pick up the guitar. But wouldn't it be nice to spice things up a little bit and play some stuff that's outside of the box? I'm going to show you how you can expand on the pentatonic boxes that you may be stuck inside of, and how to use the pentatonics just like the pros do in a matter of minutes. It all starts with these easy to remember soloing zones that happen to be right next door to your trusty pentatonic boxes. But as always, be sure to stick around till the very end of the video because I've got a free gift for you and your guitar, and you're both gonna love it. Okay, so let's take, for example, the E minor pentatonic scale. You know it, you love it. 12 to 15 on low E, 12, 14 on A, D, and G, 12, 15 on B and high E. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take the top 3 strings of that scale and we're gonna add some additional notes so we can spice it up a little bit. And what we're gonna get is this parallel finger pattern going up those top strings, which looks like this. 12, 14, 15 on G. And then same thing on B, 12, 14, 15. Same thing on high E, 12, 14, 15. So it's these parallel shapes. And for this particular soloing zone, I mean, there's a lot like you can do to exercise with it. You can practice your hammer-ons, you know, your pull-offs. Let's take a look and examine these additional notes, kind of what they are and how they can actually help us spice things up when we're playing pentatonics. Starting with this note right here, you may already know that one very well. That happens to be the famous blue note, or the flat 5 in the minor pentatonic scale. So if we're going, like if I were to drone that low E, it sounds kind of evil like that, right? But and then of course when you like add some blues context to it with some blues lickery, it makes more sense, you know. Now that blue note has a very specific vibe, and you want to take note of that. You want to like listen to the note itself and just take inventory on like what kind of sound is it giving you? What kind of emotion is it invoking? Because that's how you learn to control it and actually use it when you're soloing, so that when you're playing a note like that, especially a colorful note like that, you're not just playing it arbitrarily, you're actually playing it with intention, with purpose, because you're trying to invoke that same feeling, that same vibe that you get when you hear it. And moving on to the B string, we have 12, 14, 15, 14 being our added note here. And that note right there is borrowed from a mode, right? We can get E Dorian sounds from that. So it helps to like just drone a low E string and then just kind of clash that note against it and just listen to the vibe, right? Just like we did with the flat 5. And then right here, what's known as a 6th, or a 13 even. It's got this very different kind of sound. It can kind of pull us out of that minor pentatonic sound. It's actually a note found in the major pentatonic, an E major pentatonic. So if we were to do something like this, like skip the 15th fret on the B string and go straight to the 12th fret, the root note on the high E, we're in major pentatonic now. So it's just a nice way to sort of depart from that kind of sound. And then moving on to the high E string, we have 12, 14, 15, and then 14 right here is our added note. And this is what's known as a 9th, as far as the scale degree. And that's a particularly interesting note because it's something that it's actually used in the blues quite a bit. You know, if you think about like everyone from Albert King to Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, just doing that, going from that 9th to the root is so cool sounding, you know, as opposed to going to from that flat 3rd to the root. They both kind of have their thing, right? But you really want to take note of the vibe of these additional notes, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw on a backing track. It's gonna be a blues backing track, and I'm just gonna navigate through this one soloing zone, and I'm gonna show you how you can get some really interesting, colorful sounds that are very much a departure from what you may be used to playing when you're stuck doing the minor pentatonic stuff. I mean, you can get into like full-on Robin Ford territory, with just getting adventurous with the notes using stuff like this. So in that example, I was using very few actual like traditional sounding blues licks. And I was just kind of like walking through the notes, trying to find spots that just landed, that I felt like landed, you know, and just kind of milking them too. Just like, you know. And then of course, like after doing that, just like working in some actual blues licks. So when you combine the two, you know, don't be afraid to get a little adventurous with it. In the beginning, it's a lot of trial and error, just like try stuff out and like you'll find that some of these additional notes, some have maybe more of an impact according to your taste than others. That's okay. You still want to be able to use all of them, but you'll kind of figure out the ratio, like which of these additional notes you tend to like, you know, that tend to spice things up the most as far as your playing is concerned, you know. But then when you pepper in some actual blues licks, it just sounds really deliberate, really on purpose, and it can get into that kind of like blues fusion kind of territory, which always sounds cool. And for the next soloing zone, we're actually going to take a page out of the book of funk guitar and take, for example, something like this that we hear a lot of funk guitar players doing, like, where it's like you'll take a chord, where in this case, you know, E minor 7, but we're starting a fret below and then working our way up. You know, now what we're actually going to do here though is take a look at that flattened chord that's really just an effect, you know, when we're, you know, fretting it up. But if we were to actually look at each of those notes across that 11th fret there, starting on the D string down, we actually get some additional colorful notes that are very musical. And some are actually repeats of notes that we've already looked at. So starting with this one right here, this is the 11th fret of the D string. That's actually a 6th. It's the octave of that Dorian note, right, that we looked at. And then we have 11th fret on the G string. It's actually an octave of the 9th. And in this case, an octave lower can be called the 2nd, you know, since the 2nd scale degree up from the root. And then we have 11th fret on the B string, which is actually the same as this note right here, 15th fret of the G string, which is the blue note, right? So already we got some familiar notes here. And then we have that major 7 note right there, which is really cool. 11th fret of the high E string. So it's like there's a lot of interesting sounds, like just from messing around with finding those notes and like hearing how they clash with the root note. Now, if we were to actually apply them, you know, as like an actual soloing zone, these can be passing notes, but they also can be notes that we can kind of linger on to get a very specific kind of sound. I really like that. You know, I think it's getting into like Lydian territory. Ooh. It's really pretty, you know. And then of course, it's something that you want to be, you want to really try it out, especially if you're playing over like a blues, like in the example of the backing track, you know. It may not exactly work as far as stylistically, you know, but as passing notes especially, like it's great because then you can just do stuff like and actually, cool thing is this particular note right here. When you play an A above it, you get a major third of A, And A is the 4 chord of E. So if you're playing in a blues, for example, you have an E chord as the 1 chord, and then you'll have an A as the 4 chord. So you can use that as like a chord tone. So there's a lot of possibilities with these notes. So now that we've got this little 11th fret, this kind of like group of notes, I'm going to throw those into the mix and try them out over the backing track, and let's see what it sounds like. All right, that was interesting. There was some cool data that I just pulled from that little example there, was that like some of these notes are very musical and very colorful and can be a little ambitious too. So it's like, if I'm trying something, I'm like, oh, that sounds really like not bluesy, which could be a good thing if you're trying to go for that more like fusion-y kind of sound. Or if you're trying to retain more of the like kind of purity of the blues sound, maybe you wouldn't want to venture out or just use these, for example, these notes in this soloing zone any more than like passing notes. But they're great as passing notes. I mean, you could do stuff like this. This is a lick that I really like to do, is going. It's just so vocal and pretty, and it's using both of those soloing zones. So it starts here, 14th fret of the B string. And we're doing a half step bend. So we're bending up, or you can slide up to the 15th fret and then bring it down back to the 14th fret and then the 12th fret. And then you're going, and then we're doing a little slide from the 12th fret to the 11th fret on the G string. And then we resolve it on the root note there. So it's like, and when you're doing that lick and like the 4 chord hits, right? You can go, you know, that 11th fret on the D string, that major third, right? When we're playing that over the A, and then we're doing a root flat 7th thing, which gives it that Mixolydian kind of tonality. So with these additional notes, we can actually, whether it's intentional or not, we can borrow from these modal sounds that'll really help spice things up and pull us out of the pentatonic sort of sound, right? But of course, it always helps to just bring it on back to a pentatonic lick. You can kind of like bookend all the modal stuff with some pentatonic blues lickery, and you know, it just sounds really great, and especially gets that kind of blues fusion-y sound, which I'm a huge fan of, you know? So doing something like, you know, just sounds really mature and very, very musical compared to getting stuck in, you know, playing the same kind of blues licks. But you can pepper in those blues licks and it will just overall make the whole thing sound interesting because you're applying all those additional colorful notes. All right, and finally, we got one more soloing zone, and this one's kind of fun. So we're going to be messing around with chromaticism, where we're essentially just playing every note. If we go from point A to point B, we play every single note on the way, right? In this case, we're following every single fret. So if we were to go from the 11th fret of the G string and walk it up 5 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 11th fret on the G string, then 12th fret, 13th fret, 14th fret, 15th fret. That's a whole lot of extra notes, right? Now this little collection of notes kind of resembles a spider walk, you know? But we don't want to only play it that way. We want to really sit and observe and just listen to each of these notes and kind of get their vibe, right? So starting with the 11th fret of the G string, which is that 9th, right? Or that 2nd. Then we have our flat third or our minor third on the 12th fret. And then on the 13th fret, major third. And then on the 14th fret, we got a 4th. And then going up to the 15th fret, we got our flat 5th. So we got these, each of these notes has a vibe, you know? But, you know, when you're playing them, you don't, like I said, you don't want to just like just walk through them, right? You want to like actually utilize them. So you can do something like this. And I mean, you can really push the limits of like kind of where things are going stylistically, and you can be like, wow, that was weird, that was cool in a weird way, or that was weird in a cool way, or, you know, I like that or I didn't like that. You know, this is all a good little playground to experiment and then use your ear to determine what kind of works and sounds good and what you can actually pull from when you're soloing, like, and actually get some nice musical coloration from it, you know. But certain notes you're going to like more than others, so just take note of that, right? Now, we can take this soloing zone and actually move it up an octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So starting on the octave, right? The additional note, which is the 14th fret of the high E string. And then we have 15, 16, 17, 18. So you got those same exact notes, just an octave higher. And it's like when you try to go back to blues pentatonic, right? It just sounds so different. Now, whether or not that'll work when you're soloing, that's exactly why you want to field test this stuff and try it out over a backing track, like in the key of E, or even in the key of E minor, this stuff will work, you know? In a blues, we can kind of waffle between major and minor tonalities because we're dealing with those seventh chords, you know? But if you were to just play like a track just in straight up E minor, you could actually get a lot of use out of these, and you can actually hear how they sound when you're playing predominantly over a minor tonality, but they also work over major, because like just earlier when we did this, right? This right here, minor third, major third. So you got the tonalities of both major and minor contained within just that little lineup of notes. So mess around with those and just kind of see what works. So I'm going to throw the backing track back on, and I'm going to mess around with all three of these soloing zones. The first one here, right? And then this one, and then this one. And let's see what kind of sounds we get. So those three soloing zones will keep you plenty busy with working out new ways to make your pentatonic scales sound way more musical and way more professional. Now today we talked about the E minor pentatonic, but what if I told you can take what we learned today and apply it to any key? Well, it just so happens I have the very thing that's going to get you there. And since you made it to the end of the video, I got to make good on my promise and give you that free gift. Here it is. This bad boy is your free guide on how to instantly solo in any key. In record time, you're going to be able to find any key on your fretboard and be able to solo in it with comfort and confidence. And imagine being able to apply what we learned today, but now it doesn't matter if it's E minor pentatonic or B flat minor pentatonic or F minor pentatonic or C sharp minor pentatonic, you're going to be able to do it and it's going to be no problem. Just be sure to click here to claim your free copy or check that link in the description box. Sometimes the best way to get out of a pentatonic rut is just to pepper in some colorful notes that'll make you feel like you're playing something completely different. And the best part is there's hardly any learning curve because you're just using notes that are right within the same neighborhood.